A man spent $2 million of his own money to secretly destroy his two best friends' peace of mind, and called it research. It started with a letter. Leo Martinez read it 3 times before he let himself believe it. A man named Dr. Adrian Voss, a name Leo barely remembered, some guest lecturer from a business ethics class a decade ago, had died and left him $1 million. There was one condition, spelled out by a law firm in dry, formal language. The money couldn't be sold hidden, wired to another account, or split up. It had to be used, in full, within 90 days, and the choice had to be documented publicly. In his own name, Max Chen, Leo's old college roommate, got the identical letter the same day, same amount, same lawyer, same 90-day deadline. At the bottom of both letters, in italics, one line neither of them thought twice about. This is not a gift. It is an experiment. Choose wisely. Someone is watching, and more than your future depends on it. Leo had grown up in a cramped 2-bedroom apartment in Newark, sharing a wall with his parents, dreaming through open houses on weekends just to feel what it was like to stand in a kitchen with an island in it. So when the money hit his account, he didn't wait. Within 3 weeks, he'd closed on a $1.1 million colonial in a quiet New Jersey suburb. 6 bedrooms, an in-ground pool, a 3-car garage, financed with a mortgage for the extra $100,000 he didn't have. His mother cried when she saw the driveway. Real estate always goes up, he told himself. Everyone knows that Max was wired differently. Quiet, cautious, an underpaid actuary who spent his days watching numbers compound in spreadsheets for other people's retirement plans, while his friends bought watches and leased German cars he'd never afford on his salary. He sat with the money for 2 full weeks before doing anything. Then he opened a brokerage account and put nearly all of it into a boring, diversified portfolio. Low-cost S&P 500 index funds, a handful of blue-chip dividend stocks, a small allocation to bonds for stability. No press release, no new car, no friends invited over to see anything. Just an account that updated quietly every night while he slept, gaining or losing a little. Nobody watching. Except somebody was. Leo threw a housewarming party that spring. String lights in the backyard, a rented margarita machine, 30 people toasting his new life. Max wasn't invited to make a scene about his choice. He simply never mentioned what he'd done with the money at all. Neither of them noticed the black sedan parked across the street from Leo's new house that night, or the man inside it, typing notes into a tablet, time-stamping every photo of the party that made it onto social media. Dr. Adrian Voss was not dead. He was 71 years old, very much alive, and running an AI-driven investment fund called Aegis Capital that was 6 months from its public launch. He needed something no algorithm could fake on its own. Real, untainted behavioral data on how ordinary people actually handle sudden wealth when they think no one is grading them. The fake inheritance had already cost him $2 million of his own money, spent before either man had touched a cent of theirs. If the data held up the way his models predicted, it would validate a behavioral finance system worth billions to the institutional clients circling his fund. He wasn't watching out of idle curiosity. His company's entire next funding round depended on what these 2 men did next. And neither of them had any idea they were the product. By year 1, on paper, Leo's story looked like a clean win. His house had appreciated 8%. A local magazine ran a small profile on him. From renter to homeowner, the American dream realized before 40. Max's portfolio, meanwhile, was up 11%, quietly, with no fanfare and no audience. Voss logged both numbers in a spreadsheet without comment, the same way he'd logged the next 10 years of decisions. 5 years in, everything Leo owned seemed to break at once. First the hot water heater, then the roof. An inspector had flagged 5 to 7 years of life left in it when he bought the house, and the storm that hit that spring didn't wait politely for the timeline. 4 inches of rain fell in 6 hours, and water came through the ceiling of his son's bedroom. Insurance covered part of it, but surface water damage wasn't technically included in his standard policy, and getting that clarified took 11 months, 3 adjusters, and a lawyer he had to pay out of pocket. Meanwhile, property taxes had climbed 22% since he'd closed on the house. HOA fees rose 3% a year, for reasons the board never fully explained in the newsletters nobody read. Late one night, unable to sleep, Leo finally sat down and ran the actual numbers, the kind of accounting people only do when anxiety forces their hand. Between mortgage interest, taxes, insurance premiums, and 5 years of repairs, his $1 million asset had returned him almost nothing. Some months it had cost him money simply to keep living in it. He didn't tell his wife that night. He just turned off the lamp and stared at the ceiling, his son's room shared. Max hit a different kind of wall. In month 58, a regional banking crisis rattled the markets, and his portfolio dropped 19% in 11 trading days, the kind of drop that makes financial news anchors use words like carnage. Max did the thing that has ruined more retirement accounts than any recession in history. He logged in at 11 at night, watched the red numbers blinking on his screen, and sold nearly 40% of his holdings at the exact bottom, moving the cash out until things calmed down. 6 weeks later, the market had fully recovered. Max had locked in a real, permanent loss that simple, boring patience would have erased completely. He didn't sleep well for a month after that, either. Not from the market, but from what he'd learned about himself. That week, reviewing both datasets side by side, Voss wrote a single line in his private notes: "Neither asset class fails, people fail. Behavior, not the vehicle, determines the outcome." It was the exact insight his entire fund existed to correct for, in his paying clients. And somehow, seeing it play out in real time on 2 people he'd personally deceived unsettled him, more than it satisfied him. By year 10, Leo's house was appraised at $1.35 million. A number that would look impressive in any headline, and meant almost nothing in his actual bank account, because he couldn't touch a dollar of that value without selling the only home his kids had ever known. In a market that had gone cold right when he needed liquidity most, he was, technically, a millionaire. He was, in practice, stressed about the price of groceries. Max, after his panic sell and the months of quiet shame that followed, got angry enough at himself to actually study why it had happened. Reading about behavioral finance, loss aversion, the psychology of watching numbers move in real time. He automated his investing completely after that, so emotion could never touch it again. A fixed amount out of every paycheck, every month, regardless of headlines, regardless of fear. By year 10, even accounting for the crash and the mistake he'd made in the middle of it, his account sat at $2.1 million. Liquid, growing, completely untouched by leaking roofs, rising property taxes, or HOA boards. That was the year the black sedan came back. Voss didn't send a letter this time. He booked a private room at a restaurant and sat both men down across from him. 2 people who hadn't seen each other in years and had no idea why they'd both been summoned to the same table. Then he told them the truth. There had never been an inheritance. There had never been a dead man named Adrian Voss. He was sitting right in front of them, alive, running a $4 billion fund, and the 2 of them had just spent a decade as the unwitting human trial for the exact behavioral model his entire company was built on. Every mortgage payment, every panic-sold share, every renovation invoice, every 11p M login, all of it had been logged, time-stamped, and fed into an algorithm that was now advising 30,000 real paying clients on the precise mistakes Leo and Max had made for free, without consent, for 10 years. Leo's hands were shaking. Max just stared at the table. "Which of us won?" Leo finally asked. Voss slid a single printed page across the linen tablecloth. It wasn't a comparison of a house against a stock portfolio at all. That had never been the actual experiment. It was a comparison of what each man did under pressure, the moments that mattered far more than the asset class either of them had picked on day one. The data showed in cold and unforgiving clarity, that the vehicle itself had barely moved the needle. What decided everything was liquidity, when things went wrong, patience when markets fell, and the discipline to automate good decisions before panic had the chance to make bad ones for you. You both won something, Voss said quietly, and you both nearly lost everything, for reasons that had nothing to do with real estate or the stock market at all. So ask yourself the same question he asked them, not just Leo and Max. If someone secretly tracked every financial decision you made for the next 10 years, the day you bought, the day you panicked, the day you almost sold everything out of fear, would the data make you look like the winner of this story? Or the warning at the end of it? House or stocks? Tell me which one you'd have chosen, and why. I read every single comment.